Everybody. This is a very nice way to almost spend my birthday here. I am so excited to be with you all today, and we've all almost got the exact same message. We all do it a little differently, but I think a lot of the things you're hearing, it's the same thing. We all work very, very different. And I started in this business back in 1992, and I've come a long way over the years. But when I started back, I look at how much I didn't know. And for those of you that are new, we've got so much more technology, and from chatting with some of you, you can be so much farther ahead with the information that's out here that we didn't have back then. My first year in the business, I only sold life insurance because I didn't know about annuities or mutual funds or any other piece of the puzzle. And when I started back in the business, I had just moved to Michigan from Wisconsin. I didn't know a soul. I didn't realize there was a 95% failure rate your first year. Back then it was a 98% failure rate within your first 5 years, and less than 2% were women. So I said if I had half a brain, I probably would have never gone into this business, but I was much too dumb to know any better. So I'm glad I started. How many of you have seen the movie Legally Blonde? A good portion of you. My husband and I were watching that one time, and he's like, who would ever be so dumb to do a pink resume? And I'm like, me? And at the time, I think I only did 2 resumes. I was working with someone that sold life insurance. I had bought some for my family, and then the person changed jobs, and about 6 months later, they had tried to recruit me to come to work at this person's new company. And I'm thinking, gosh, if my life insurance program I did with you 6 months ago was so great from this place, why do I want to switch firms or do something different? But it kind of opened up my mind to, is this a career I might want to look at? And so I answered a job for a management trainee, not realizing the person I'd be managing was me. And I'm still here doing that ever since. So it's a wonderful place to be. But back when I started in the business, the only thing we were taught to do or allowed to do was referrals. And so that's something that I got pretty decent with because that was the only thing I had. Back in the day, there's a lot of orphan clients, I believe, in our industry now, but we weren't allowed to even look at or touch or talk to someone who was an orphan policyholder till we were about 5 or 6 years in the business. We weren't allowed to do any type of advertising or anything. It was referrals or nothing. So I learned how to do that rather early on. And I think one of the big problems our clients have, and it's probably one of the same clients a lot of us have, is there's so much information out there. So one of my questions to all of you is, what do you want your business to look like? And I don't know when was the last time you looked at that. So whether you're brand new starting out in a couple years in the business, or whether like me, you've got some gray hair you can't see covered up someplace and you've been around for a couple of years, when was really the last time you looked at what you wanted your business to look like? And I think that's something that we don't always do often enough. And I've done a couple different coaching classes. In fact, back to all the MDRT stories. In my very first MDRT, it took me 7 years to qualify for it when I started. I went to my first MDRT meeting in New Orleans, and I kept hearing different speakers and taking notebooks full of notes. And the common thread I learned were people were going to a coaching class. And I signed up for that coaching class, and 18 months later, I had tripled my business. And I didn't think that was all too bad, and I kind of hung out at that level for a couple years. And then a few years ago, I was just tired of being where I was, and I kept moving ahead a little bit, but not quite far enough. And I don't know if you ever get to that point where you're stuck, or you know you can do more than what you're doing, but it's like, how do I get there and how do I do that? So I had one of my MDRT friends mentor me and help out, and all of a sudden, it was like a couple really little ideas made that huge, huge difference. And I think Brian said it this morning, sometimes it's that idea that you're going to miss is what you don't want to not be there for. Sometimes it's not like the biggest speech out there. So I truly hope that whether it's for myself or David or Brian or anyone that's speaking here, you can go back to your office with at least one really good idea that could make a huge difference. My husband and I sometimes, when we're out to dinner with our kids or friends or someone, we'll kind of have the little code phrase between us of, that's really interesting. And sometimes that can be it is kind of interesting. And sometimes for us it means, what are y'all really thinking about? Is that something that's going to work or not? So some of the ideas I heard from NAIFA meetings or MDRT over the years, when I first heard them, it was kind of like, well, maybe that idea works well for David. Or maybe that's one that works for Steve, but how is that idea going to work for me? So I want to share a couple ideas with you today. Please try to keep an open mind, and a couple of the ideas that I thought were really interesting, and I thought, no absolute way is that ever going to work. Some of those were the ideas that actually pushed my business over the edge and got me going to some different areas with it. So with financial planning, I always tell clients there's 4 main steps. And the 4 steps to financial planning are making a plan and figuring out what you want, prioritizing and putting those goals into some kind of workable plan. The 3rd step is to take action. And the 4th step, which I think is quite honestly one of the hardest steps, is to review and update regularly. And whether that's with our clients, and I'll step back and say, or with our own selves for our businesses, it's so important to look at that and see what we need to do with it. So my first question to all of you would be, what do you want your business to look like? I've talked to some of you that are brand new and you're doing well already, and yet you know you can do so much more with it. Maybe you haven't hit MDRT yet, but from some of the people that I've spoken with, I have no doubt in my mind you're going to be there in a very short amount of time. For some of you that have been around for years, are you happy with how your business is? Is it totally fine as is? Or is there something you'd like to do a little different? David on his slides had Ben Feldman up. And Ben's son Marv is a wonderful man. He runs the Life Foundation, or Life Happens. And I was talking to him one day, and he said, I do a lot more business than you do at the time. But he said, all it means is that I help a whole lot more people than you help. And that little phrase made a big difference to me, because sometimes when you hear about MDRT or quarter top of the table, I had different opinions of what that meant or what the people were like. And I learned from Marv, all it means is that they helped more people than I was helping at the time. And that really hit home with me because I love to help people. So think about that line, they just help more people. Another big myth I thought about quarter top of the table people was that they were writing all these huge cases. And I don't know what your opinion of, what people are in that opinion, but I thought, gosh, I don't have that kind of market or business. My office is in Grand Rapids, Michigan, not Minnesota, and it's a town of about 200,000, and I live in a little town of about 6,000 right now, and I truly live in Mayberry. So I don't have the big city stuff around, and I found out from talking to some of my MDRT friends, a lot of the people that are doing a lot of production, they're not writing these huge cases, which is what I thought they were doing. They're just seeing more people. So then that comes down to, how do you see the more people, or how do you have the plan with it? One of the things that's helped me tremendously over the years is a little book called a planner pad. And if you've never seen one, they cost about a whopping $20, $25. They fit perfectly, like with a sheet of paper you can slide inside there. But to me, that's been my Bible for the year, and I've been doing that for about 12 years now. And they've got a page at a glance for every month. There's a weekly calendar inside with all kinds of columns that you can use for volunteer work, prospecting, for referrals, for whatever you need to do. And it's a great way to put your business plans down on paper and review them. And I think if you don't have any set plan, you're not going to make your numbers, you're not going to know if you're not tracking some of these things. So it's so important to do that. One of the things I do with my clients that has worked really well is figure out who those top clients are and kind of categorize them. And a couple years ago, I started doing that. It's funny to go back and look at it over the years. Who were my A clients 10 years ago? Actually, some are still A clients and some are actually C and D clients. And how I broke up my book of business was, I said an A client was someone that I had reoccurring revenue with, maybe a financial plan, a managed money account, some life insurance. Another big thing with my A clients, though, is that they gave me referrals, took my advice, and I loved being with them. And so those A clients are people you really do want to duplicate. And again, those people have changed over time. My B clients were kind of junior A's. They were maybe my next door neighbor who's an attorney. He was just starting out in practice. His first year in the business, he made around $35,000 as a brand new attorney. His wife was still in nursing school. Now he's one of the most established attorneys. He's got a great reputation. They since have got 2 little boys. She got her nursing degree. But he's always listened to what I've given him for advice, and he's always been wonderful at referring people to me. So he definitely got to be a B client. My C clients were people over the years, and depending on what type of business you run, maybe they're a P&C client that's only got one policy with you. Maybe they've got a small term insurance case with you, but not really anything else. We were talking at dinner last night. Just because someone's got a small life policy doesn't mean they're fully insured at that point. So my C clients were people that had something with me, but I wasn't their full advisor, or I really didn't know their whole situation. And then a D client was someone that maybe their brother-in-law or their brother's an agent. They still have got a small policy or a small something with me, but they were someone that the odds of me getting their business, quite honestly, was real slim. And a hard thing for me was knowing when to not keep going after someone. Because I think sometimes we keep pursuing some people, and some people, quite honestly, the answer is just going to be no. And you have to determine also between what's a no and what's a not now. And so if you're a not now, I am happy to keep kind of staying in touch with you for a very long time. But there are a handful of people in our business where no is no, and put them on that list, and if they ever do contact you, great. But one of my goals was to try to help get those C clients turned into those A and B clients. And that was actually one thing that helped me triple my production. We had sent a letter out to our clients. We started out with just our A's and B's. And one of my business coaches had said to me, send a note out to your A and B clients, just tell them you're updating your database, you want to be in touch. Ask if they have any money you don't know about, and ask for referrals in this letter. And I was paying this person to help me with some coaching for marketing. And to be honest, I thought it was a really dumb idea. Because if you ask me, I thought I did a pretty good job with my clients, and I really did think I knew where I had most of my clients' money. But because I was paying to do this, I sent the letters out anyway, and I got $8 million in new assets, 20 new life insurance policies, and 35 referrals. And so for what I thought was a really stupid idea, I'm like, not so bad. So that was one of those things that you just don't know sometimes what's going to happen. David had talked about a spring letter, and this year, I don't have to explain to you what a bad winter it was. We had the same one you had. We decided, just because we were not happy with the weather, we sent out a happy spring card. And there's a website or a catalog out there called Postie Cards, and they've got really nice, high-quality cards. They probably, if you buy them in bulk, average about 50 cents a card, so they're not overly expensive. For an extra 1 or 2 cents, you can get your name imprinted on the back of it. It looks very professional and very nice. One thing we do, we don't use a postage meter, and people tease me because we use real stamps for everything. So we found a nice, pretty stamp with some flowers on it. We had nice labels made, and then we do hand sign all our cards. I do it sometimes. Sometimes my secretary's getting pretty good at my handwriting. But my card will say, Dear Steve. It had the little happy spring message, and then we'll just sign my name. Because we don't get cards like we used to. And for all of you in the audience, probably over 40, who doesn't like cards? We do birthday cards also, and I'm digressing here a little bit. But sometimes people will tell me that we're the only birthday card they get. My husband had a birthday a few weeks ago. All 4 of our kids texted him. Texted and or called. And yes, that's happy birthday and it counts. But other than my mom, his mother, and we always do cards for each other, there really wasn't a whole lot of birthday cards. So people do like getting cards. And ironically, they say the people with the most money right now are the baby boomers, so people 50 plus are the ones. They like getting cards, but what's ironic is the second most money age group is Gen X and Gen Y. So everybody that's around 30 years old, that's the next big booming group. And we all get tons of emails and junk mail and this and that, so those hand-done cards are neat. But back to the spring card. In our spring card, all we did was put in a little quarter sheet of paper that said, Barb's been traveling a lot. I've learned all kinds of new things. The market's been changing. I've got some new things I've learned from all these travels. And we said, if you haven't yet seen Barb since first of the year, please call our office to set up an appointment. Well, guess how many phone calls I got? Any guesses? 130, close. We got 90 calls. We sent out 500 letters and got 90 calls. So we got almost a 20% rate back on something that I had no clue. I thought maybe we'd get 10 or 15 calls back. So good or bad, my schedule has been absolutely slammed. That's the happy news with it. But sometimes little simple things like that, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be, if you will, overly exciting. I think the important thing is people want to know you care about them. And back to when I was new in the business, I was always told you had to see at least 15 people a week. So I'd get on the phone and work with the referrals. And back when I was new, it was more of a matter of just saying, who do you know, who are you friends with? We've certainly changed our techniques and how we're doing things. I was sharing with someone earlier, we always say, what's the worst thing a man ever wants to hear? We need to talk, right? So we don't want to call our clients and we don't really want to talk. And as my clients have gotten older, I've learned appointments means you have a doctor's appointment, you have to go to the cardiologist, you've got an appointment with the orthopedic guy. So one of the people that I learned from taught me, have a conversation with your clients. Get together to chat, get together for coffee, get together to have a soda or a pop or whatever you call it here. But I'm not doing appointments anymore, and I'm not telling people I want to talk anymore. So if you can give people an idea why you want to get together. So I'd like to have, I was just at a conference, and I've got a really great idea. As soon as I was hearing this in my conference, I thought of you, and I'd like to chat with you about something, or an idea that would benefit you and your family. But when you're trying to get together with a prospect or a client, I find it works so much better if you've got a reason to see them. Everybody's busy now, and I don't know what's happened in the world, but no one's got time anymore. And I run an average of 15 to 20 appointments a week, whether I'm traveling or not. And they're not long meetings. Our attention spans, I think, have gotten very short over the last couple years. On the rare occasion that someone wants to spend more time with you, that's always nice. But I find more often than not, we're better off doing things in bite-sized pieces with our clients. So if you have an idea you can chat with them about, maybe present that concept to them. I'm finding I'm doing a lot more business by staying in front of my clients and presenting those ideas and presenting a concept at a time. So I do a lot of financial planning in my practice. And even when I do the financial planning, I'm amazed that I'll get all their information ahead of time. When I actually go to present their plan to them, which is usually about a 120-page document, I will only present the 3-page summary page. And I think people are happy that I'm not spending 2 hours reviewing this whole dissertation with them. I'm saying, hey, I highlighted a couple things that were important. Let me go over the high points. Here's some sticky notes, so if and when you get around to reading this, and I'll be real honest, a fraction of the people actually read the thing and highlight it and go through it. An awful lot of them, I will bet you money, it just sits on their shelf until I'm back a week or two later. But by following up and saying, hey, this is what's important for what we need to do with you, they're thankful that someone's paying attention to their financial needs. And that is so important to do that with clients. A couple weeks ago, I had both my parents on ICU 3 weeks ago. And I have had an absolutely not fun year with my parents this last year. 2 years ago in fall, I had to put my dad in a nursing home. And my dad, he stayed on top of finance all the time, not overly organized, but it was one of these things where I had to have an attorney come to the hospital to get power of attorney for him. I had to get his health care directives done. And my dad, who always knew the stock market to the 4th decimal point and could tell you exactly where the market closed yesterday, all of a sudden just had no interest in paying bills anymore, doing anything, maintaining his house. And it was not a fun thing to go through. So I've spent a lot of time helping him get things in order, get him all set. And from experience, I can tell you, in Milwaukee, and not, the Taj Mahal or anything, nursing home care is $83,000 a year. And about a year later, my dad said, he says, I think I might be running low on money. And I'm like, really? Now you're thinking you might be running low on money for what this is costing? But it was one of those things that if we're not sitting down with our clients and going through all the different areas, or if you're not talking to your clients' kids about them. And I'm also at the point with my clients of saying, if you really don't want to talk about this, fine. Or if you don't want to look at the insurance, that's fine. But I do need you to sign a note for our file saying that we discussed it together. And rarely does anybody want to sign that note. Then all of a sudden they're a little more open to chatting about it. Or if a client's plan is, well, my kids are going to take care of me, I always say that's lovely. Let me just get your kid's name and phone number so I can confirm that with them for my file. And how many kids have all this time that you want to take care of mom and dad 24/7? It's just not happening no matter how much the kids love their parents. That's usually not what your game plan is out there. But the one thing that I have found from working with the kids, I work with a lot of multi-generational families now, and some of that was by accident. My oldest client's now 103. And she's a neat lady, but if you talk to her, what I always find interesting is she always says she doesn't like her kids and grandkids. And I was like, Florence, that's not really very nice. And she said, no, she says they're old and ornery and grumpy and all they do is talk about their aches and pains. And she said, the ones I like are my great-grandkids. She says, because they'll take me drinking. But if you do the math and think about this with her, her kids are 80, her grandkids are 60, and her kids and grandkids are kind of ornery between you and me. Her great-grandkids are 30 to 40, and they'll take her to the sports bar and get her ribs and a beer. You know, one beer does her fine, but she's a still pretty lively little lady here. So people are getting older, but what's nice with working with the kids and grandkids is, first of all, when something happens to those older clients, you don't want to lose their assets. And if there's life insurance involved, which hopefully there is and a lot of it, you want that life insurance money to stay with you, hopefully. So the better you can get to know the families, the greater chance you're still going to have that money. And I'm always shocked by the surveys that say get to know, your clients' wives if you're working with the husband. And maybe just by being female, it's like, okay, really? But I can't tell you how many times I'll have someone that I know where the husband does die, the agent's never spoken to the wife, and all of a sudden, because I've got a relationship with her, I'll be able to get that business because no one sat down and talked to both spouses. So one of my rules is no matter who I'm working with, I want to meet both spouses. And I've had people say, it's not important. Well, it really is important. And to be honest, especially women can be a little testy if there's someone else involved and they don't know what's going on. I had one gentleman I worked with for about 10 years. And when he retired, his wife thought that they had about $1 million. The good news is he had done well. He had really great programs at work. And when he actually retired, he had $2 million. And you would kind of think that his wife would be sort of happy about that. She was livid. She was like, why didn't I spend more throughout the years and this and that? And she was not a happy camper. But she was someone that always spent a ton of money and ran up a lot of charge debt. And he actually made her pay off her charge debt. So when I met her, I almost lost that case because I didn't have that relationship with her over the years. The good news is we hit it off after we did meet after 2 or 3 meetings, and now we're actually very dear friends. But it took a little while to get there. So I really encourage you to talk to your clients' kids, talk to their parents, talk to their spouses, and it's amazing how much business is there, and especially when the clients know that you're trying to use life insurance to pay taxes on those 401ks and IRA money out there. And that'll be more money in your client's pocket that you can help possibly pay for some college for grandkids or do some nice family trips or do some things. What a friend you'll make in those other generations, just knowing that you're helping take care of everybody. I also don't know if any of you have ever used a coaching consultant or anything like that, but I found that can really come in handy. And sometimes what it is it's just really making you look at what you're doing in your business, why you're doing it. And I think sometimes it's really hard to look at ourselves. About 10 years ago, I started looking at my own business and my own life and saying, what am I doing? What am I doing well? What do I still want to do? What's all on my bucket list? What do I want my business to look like? And then the question that I kind of struggled with for a while is, what's stopping me? And that was a really interesting one. And sometimes when we do things, I think it's easy to say, well, I can't because I don't have enough staff, or my husband or wife might not like this, or we've got kids, or whatever reason. And when I really made that list, what I learned was the only thing stopping me from all these things I wanted to do was me. And there really was nobody out there stopping me. And I've gotten to be a firm believer that we get what we expect and we get what we want. So whatever you want your business to look like, if your goal is MDRT, I truly believe you can do it if you want to do it. You know, if your goal is quarter top of the table, it's very doable if you want to. And if you're fine with where your business is, and if that works for you and your family, that's fine too. You know, what's really neat about our business is there's no right or wrongs. We all run it very, very differently. We've got, I think, a lot of common threads there, but we can all run it different. It can still all work for each of us. And the other thing with that is that we're all at different stages. And someone that's young with maybe new babies or young kids, your business and your work hours and how you run your business is going to be different from someone whose kids are grown or don't have kids. And that's okay too. You just need to find which way is going to work for you. And I was telling someone earlier today, if you're new in the business, there's so many people that we're all getting a little older here. And they say the average agent right now is 58 years old and getting ready to retire in the next 3 to 5 years. So for those of us that have been around for 20, 30 years, I'll bet we all have got a lot of clients, and I'll bet we're not always seeing all our clients all the time. And I see a couple people shaking their heads out there, but it's true. And for the new people, sometimes your issue is maybe not having enough people to call on. So about 2 years ago, we started really marketing to our C clients. And I had someone in my office help do that. And where I always was religious about getting my A and B clients, the handwritten birthday card, doing my formal reviews with them and stuff, my question was, how many of my C clients out there, were they a C client and they really don't have anyone? And I know one of the themes of the conference is Main Street America, and it's so true. There are so many people out there. Think of it just like us. They're watching this on the news, they're reading this in a magazine, they're talking to their buddy at work that's telling them a third thing, and they get so confused with it, their answer is, well, let's just plain do nothing. Because doing nothing is much easier than trying to do all that research and figure out what we're doing. So we put together a really simple letter, and I try to ask my clients 3 or 4 questions. And they're very, very simple. And one of my questions is, based on what you have and based on what you're doing, can you tell me what your retirement income will be? And I'll say that one more time. Based on what you're currently doing and what you have, can you tell me what your retirement income will be? Can you give me a number? I have yet, besides some of my clients, to run into anybody out there that knows what that number's going to be. If my client's older and retired, the question I ask is, will your money last as long as you do? What are the odds of that happening? And people don't know the answer to that question. Another question I ask is, do you have an investment policy statement? And rarely does anyone even know what an investment policy statement is. But it's simply a way of saying, okay, you've got all your assets. Why are you in the particular assets you're in? What are the different allocations? What different types of products are you in? And so if someone doesn't have an investment policy statement, they really don't have a good financial plan. And the third question I ask is, if something happened to you or your husband or wife or loved one, is your family going to be okay? With absolute certainty, if your spouse was gone tomorrow, do you know for a fact you'd be totally okay? And I'll tell you what, I find very few, and I mean like, I think I have found 2 people that have been able to answer those questions. So anyone that can't answer those questions, real honestly, is a client or prospect for us. And it's, a lot of times people don't know what they need or want. We were chatting earlier today on when someone says they're all set. Well, sometimes all set means no, now's not a good time. It doesn't mean they don't need your services. It might be that they're embarrassed to tell you their finances are a real mess. And so you've got to get good at asking questions and sort of doing that. We find that doing real low-key seminars sometimes is a nice way of doing that. And there's lots and lots lately within the last 2 or 3 years of generic seminars out there whether it's sort of a state of the economy and a state of the market. Social Security seminars are real big right now, but it's trying to get people to engage and get them to know you. One of the things that I always say is, do what you like to do. Now, I know with Steve, it's hunting and doing your videos and things, but everybody's got stuff they like. With David, it might be the sporting events with his kids. I love to cook, so we've been doing some cooking classes. We've got a Williams in Sonoma near my office, and they'll do cooking classes for my clients, and they'll actually provide all the food. I just bring in, we've been averaging about 40 people show up. They'll cook a couple items, they'll teach you how to make it. They'll offer the clients a discount on anything Williams and Sonoma sells. And it's just like a neat way to get to know people. And there's lots of different things you can do, whether your hobbies are playing golf or hunting or stuff with the kids. There's a lot of great things you can do here for them. So those little events where you're not necessarily even selling anything, I think one of the best things you can do with those is help educating people. And by educating them, they're going to get to know you and like you, and the more they like you, the more they're likely to do business with you. So one of the things I want to stress here is take some time to spend some time on you and your business, and start thinking about what you'd like to do, and what do you want your business to look like. Whether it's going to a coffee shop or a museum, or spending a few minutes in your office on a weekend with the door shut, or finding your comfortable chair at home. Give some thought to what you want your business and your life to look like. And make a list. And I did that with my house a few years ago, and I really love my house, but I kept going into all these clients' really big houses and places and thinking, you know, what would a perfect house look like to me? And I made this list, and ironically, everything on the list was my house. Was actually all my house except for a sauna, and I'm like, that's kind of silly. And one of my clients was selling a sauna a month or two later, and I'm like, bingo, you know, got everything I want. I've got lovely neighbors, and I'm close to schools and close to the grocery store, and we live in a really nice town. But sometimes you have to do that mental inventory to say, what do I want? Is the grass really greener somewhere else? And I'll almost bet that a lot of you have got fabulous businesses set up. And I'll bet you're that far away from maybe hitting a new level in your business if you just take that time to look at it. And by making a couple little adjustments with things, odds are your business is really going to improve and go from there. So take some time to look at what you want, try to get a plan together, and like I say, take some action on those plans, but then sit down every couple months and say, hey, how am I really doing with this? Is it working for me? Some of these silly things like these letters, I really didn't think they'd do all that well. They're not very expensive, they're not very high tech or anything like that, but for us it's been a great way to pick up new clients. So you just don't know sometimes, but see what works for you, and if it's working, keep doing it. And if it's really not working that well, it's time to say, hey, enough of that, and let's move forward on something else. So good luck with your business plans, and just make sure you do something with them. So thank you.